What's up guys, Kudo-kun here, finally getting to Smash Brothers about a week late, but better late than never, I always say. I've been itching to talk about this game and I've finally gotten the chance. So first things first, let's talk about the game part of the game with the control differences. The controls are very similar to Smash 4, so if you played and liked Smash 4, you're gonna be at home here. The major difference is they brought back the air dodging from Melee, so you can now dodge in the air in any direction. This is a neat trick, especially for characters who have unreliable B-up moves, so you can now air dodge into the ledge to make it a bit safer. For those of you that are worried about wave dashing coming back, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Now when you air dodge into the ground, there's a bit of ending lag, so you're not going to be able to just jump and dash continuously like you could in Melee. Not to say that it won't exist at all, but there's just not much of a reason to do it anymore if it's so slow. I'd also like to talk about some of the character differences. Keep in mind, I won't be able to talk about every single character's differences, partly because I didn't play all the characters well enough to know their differences, and partly because if I talked about every single character, this would go on forever. So if I talk about a character, it's because it's a character that I'm familiar with, or a character that I really like. Link is the character I was looking forward to the most because Breath of the Wild was so wildly different from the other Zelda games. I felt like he was the one with the most potential to really step out and be a different character. And well, he kind of is. He does have this neat little thing now where if you charge up a smash attack and you have 0% health, you can fire a beam from your sword, which is a pretty nice touch. But other than that, they changed his moves, but just barely. His neutral B is still a bow, his B up is still a sword spin, his down B is still a bomb, though a slightly different bomb because now it doesn't explode on impact, it explodes when you push the down B button again to detonate it. I know some people are going to be really into that, but I find it pretty annoying. I prefer just a bomb that explodes when it hits an enemy, you know? And then his side B is a boomerang still. And it's not even the Gale boomerang, so all of those fancy tricks are gone. The only other difference now is his grab isn't ranged anymore, it's just a melee range grab, which also means he no longer has his tether. Personally, I cannot express to you guys how disappointed I am with Link's rework. They could have done so much more with this character. Now that his bomb needs to be detonated and he doesn't have his ranged grab anymore or his tether, he honestly just feels like a worse version of the other Links. And this time he doesn't even have his Gale boomerang to make up for it. Again, I'm sure some people are going to love this version of Link, but man, so much missed opportunity. Why can't his side B be like shield surfing, and why couldn't they have introduced some elements with like switching weapons or throwing weapons or anything that made Breath of the Wild unique? But whatever, no use crying over spilled milk, I suppose. But if you want that classic Link action, you're gonna have to play Young Link now. At least his final smash isn't a copy of the other Links. It's a copy of Zelda and Sheik's final smash from 4. I have nothing else to say about this character. The Ganondorf changes, though, are pretty sweet. Of all the things Sakurai listened to, he listens to the fans saying that they wanted Ganondorf to use his sword, and oh god does it deliver. Ganondorf's sword is now incorporated into all of his smash attacks, which make it feel really awesome. I don't think they have that much of an impact on the way Ganondorf plays as a character, but his up smash seems to have a bit more distance. The Pokemon Trainer's back in full force, but don't expect too many changes from Brawl. He plays almost exactly the same. Two key differences are his Pokemon no longer get exhausted, so you could choose to just play as one Pokemon throughout the entire match now if you wanted to, but you'll want to switch because when you press down B, not only is the switch almost immediate so you can combo Pokemon moves into one another, but you also get a few frames of invincibility. Being an effective Pokemon trainer is going to take a bit of skill now because you're going to have to know when to use those invincibility frames and also how to combo the next Pokemon in the chain to the Pokemon you're currently using. Like if you're stuck in the air as Squirtle, you're going to want to push down B to switch into Ivysaur because Ivysaur has a much better recovery move. One small design change that they made is now if you slowly move the control stick in one direction or the other, you'll go into a running animation, but it'll be a different running animation than you get if you just flick the control stick. It doesn't seem to have much effect, but it's kind of a cool detail, so if you have a character that you play a lot, try moving the control stick slowly into a run versus just flicking the control stick into an immediate run and see what the differences are. Robin now has a meter above his portrait that shows how much energy his tomes have, as well as how much energy his Levin sword has. After a certain amount of time, you'll get the Levin sword automatically, and after a smash attack, your Levin sword meter will go down. It's not a huge change, but aesthetically it does make it easier to see Robin's attacks. His B-Up also got a small improvement, because now you can angle the Elwind in ways you couldn't before. Now, anybody who knows me in Smash 4 knows that Shulk was my baby boy. So I'm excited to say that while he largely remains untouched, there is one huge change that they've made to him to make him a lot more convenient to play. His Monado arts now have a new gimmick, where you can now hold the button in and manually select your Monado art instead of just cycling through by pressing the B button. Keep in mind, the option to just mash the B button to get the art you want is still there, but now you can do one or the other. When you get used to where all of the arts are, this makes switching between them a breeze, and it even shows you how long you have left on each one before they recharge. One thing that's a little awkward that you'll have to get used to is if you let go of the B button first and then the control stick, then you'll get the art change. If you let go of the control stick first and then the B button, then you actually won't change your art. It's a minor annoyance and it's pretty easy to get used to, but it's just a small thing I thought I'd bring up. Also, shield art has been heavily nerfed because it only lasts like 5 or 6 seconds now. In fact, all of his arts feel like they last a little bit less time. Now we can talk about the new guys. Dark Samus is pretty much an exact copy of Samus, but one thing I will say is they went far out of their way to make Samus look aesthetically different from Samus in every way. For example, Dark Samus doesn't just walk across the ground exactly like Samus does. Dark Samus actually hovers above the ground, and it's a pretty cool effect. So even though they don't technically play different from one another, I do appreciate Nintendo's extra steps in making the Echo Fighters feel a lot more unique, at least aesthetically. Daisy's the same song and dance, pretty much exactly the same as Princess Peach, but a little bit bouncier and happier. Movesets are exactly the same, but they at least act and look a bit different from each other. Chrom finally made it in, my personal favorite Fire Emblem prince, if anybody was curious, and his moveset is pretty much exactly the same as Marth and Roy's, with the one exception being his up B is a bit different. His up B is pretty interesting because it's a take on Ike's up B, but it's a bit better because there's a startup slash and then he jumps and then he spins. So I'm a little disappointed he's not a bit more unique, but he's at least more unique than the other Echo characters, and I mean, how unique can a Fire Emblem swordsman really be at this point? Ken is an interesting case because he feels like a worse version of the character he's based on, which I don't think is supposed to happen. Now this could just be ignorance on my part because I don't know how to play Ryu that effectively, but I do know that if you do a half circle forward A, he does a red fireball that does a lot more damage than a regular Hadouken, and I know that Ken doesn't have it, but feels almost exactly the same in every other area. I think maybe his Shoryuken is a bit different because there's a bit of fire around it, but it doesn't really feel that much better. So again, I really don't know the character well enough to judge whether or not he actually is a worse version of Ryu, but he feels like a much worse version of Ryu. Now we're going to get on to the actually new characters, and we're going to start with Inkling, and get ready for this one, boys, because this one really caught me off guard, but I think Inkling might be my new main for Smash Ultimate. The Inkling has a bit of a gimmick where your attacks will also cover the enemy in paint, and the more paint you cover them in, the more damage you deal and the farther you knock them back with smash attacks. So the general idea behind the Inkling is you want to always be offensive, because if you leave your opponent alone for too long, or if you play really defensively, then the ink will start to dry and you won't deal as much damage anymore. You would think that a character from a shooting game would also be kind of a long-range character, but no, the Inkling is really effective at short range and mid-range. They're fast, they're bursty, and they control really fluidly. Your regular B is a Gatling gun. You have a bomb on your down B, and you can control how far you throw the bomb. You could just lob it straight up into the air, or you can throw it across the entire arena. And you just have to find a way to stay on the offensive and make sure your paint doesn't dry. And if you ever run out of paint, then you have to find a way to get away from your opponent so that you can recharge it. This creates a pretty interesting mind game between you and your opponent, because if you ever run low on ink or run out of ink completely, your attacks stop covering the enemy in ink. So this is the time where they can switch it and get really offensive on you to stop you from recharging. But your secret weapon is your B up, because even if you're completely out of ink, you can use B up to continue refreshing the ink on your opponent so that it doesn't dry. Finding a way to keep up your momentum even when your ink is low or completely out is going to be the difference between a good Inkling player and a really, really good Inkling player. The only thing I don't really like about the Inkling is you have to be completely out of ink to recharge, because your Gatling gun and your ink recharge are the same button. Kinda wish there were a way to just recharge your ink whenever you wanted, but I guess that's just the trade-off. Ridley's up next, and Ridley is okay. I don't even really know what I was expecting with Ridley, but I'm not that big of a fan. You do have a command grab, and that's pretty cool. You can really viscerally drag the opponent across the map. And you can even use it mid-air to gimp your opponent from getting back on the stage. But the real Ridley gameplay is in the down B. Now, if you stab somebody with your tail at just the right angle, you can deal a massive amount of damage at once. So playing Ridley is going to be controlling distance and trying to get that tail spike at just the right moment so that your opponent takes the full damage and gets the stun. Simon is a pure spacing character. Pretty much every attack you have is ranged, including your smash attack, which, while it's not a full ranged attack like Mega Man, it does have a lot more range than a sword, so you can use it to pretty effectively beat out other characters' smash attacks. All of your B attacks are some kind of ranged attack, though, so you are supposed to throw out your boomerang, and then while it's coming back, you can throw some axes, and if they get too close, you can throw your holy water to create some fire on the ground, and essentially your opponent never gets a chance to get close enough to you to start engaging you. No matter what distance there is between you and your opponent, you're going to have some kind of attack you can do, so you don't have to worry about getting in close to your opponent or your opponent getting in close to you. Actually, come to think about it, it does feel very similar to Mega Man's playstyle, and also old Link's playstyle, if anybody remembers that. Boomerang, spam arrows, throw bombs. But with Simon, it's going to be boomerang, spam axes, throw holy water. Definitely one of the more fun new characters to play. Richter is exactly the same, but his fire is blue. K. Rool is our new heavyweight, a bit of a joke character. A lot of people are sort of picking him up and enjoying him. I totally get it, but he's definitely not for me. His crown has a sort of boomerang thing going on for it, so you can use it to control spacing a little bit. And then he's got a cannon that he can shoot, and while his cannonball is out, he can suck it back up and then spit it back out to do more damage, or he can suck up an enemy and spit them out to do a bit of damage. His down B is pretty awesome because not only does it reflect projectiles, but it also acts as a counter, so it's almost like playing a Fox down B and like a Marth Lucina down B in one. And some of his attacks have super armor, so honestly, I'm not sure he's necessarily a very bad character. I know some people are making some jokes about him being a bad character, but he seems like a pretty decent character, just not a character that I would ever be interested in. Isabelle is my second favorite of the new characters, really pretty similar to the Villager with a couple of key differences. The first is your down B doesn't plant a tree anymore. It's really a simple move. It just lays a landmine, and if your opponent ever steps over the landmine, then a Gearoid shoots up and explodes. And second, much more interesting, is your side B is now a fishing pole that is a long-range command grab. Now, I want to talk about this fishing rod for a second, because I think this fishing rod might be my favorite attack in the entire game. Like, I seriously considered picking up Isabelle as my main because of this one attack. So it's a long-range command grab. You can choose what direction to throw your opponent in. You can use it mid-air, and you can combo it into itself. If it misses, or if you miss, you can delay it, and then as soon as your opponent runs out of invincibility frames, you just reel it back in and they're still caught in the grab. You can hang it over a ledge and use it to edge guard, and if your opponent runs out of invincibility frames or tries to roll into you, you can immediately snap it back, grab them, and throw them back off of the ledge. And on top of all of that, it's a bloody tether! So if you happen to fall off of the stage, you can just use it to reel yourself back in. It's so good, you guys. I will be legitimately shocked if Isabelle doesn't see some pro play just because of this fishing rod. So last but not least is Incineroar, and I'm pretty divided on him. Incineroar has two special things going for him. If you happen to land his down B counter, then your next attack will deal massive damage. And his side B is a command grab that has a few different endings. If you don't push any buttons, then they just run into you and it's sort of a whiff. If you push a button as soon as you throw them into the ring, then you'll just throw them straight up into the air, which could be useful if you happen to catch them mid-air and you want to throw them out. And if you time the button press just as they're coming back into you, then you'll throw them behind you, and it's a pretty good kill shot. And it seems fine on paper, but I just don't find him that much fun to play. Like, it does feel good when you pull off the counter and then you sort of, like, armbar the opponent off of the stage, but it's just not really for me, I think. Also, for whatever reason, his B move is absolutely useless. The last thing I want to mention are Final Smashes. A lot of Final Smashes have been changed, especially the ones that involved transforming. One big example of this, of course, would be the Star Fox characters that used to change into Landmasters. Now instead you just get a cinematic. I don't really know what this change was about, but I noticed that none of the characters really transform into anything anymore. I guess it might have been too broken or something, but that's just been taken out completely. If you were a fan of the Palutena's Guidance Easter eggs, then I've got some great news for you. Not only are they back, but there's some new ones recorded for some of the older characters that have changed, and also every single character has one now, including the characters that didn't have one in Smash 4. If Snake's Codex from Brawl were more your cup of tea, then I've got some pretty good news for you. Those have all made a return, although no new lines were recorded, so they're all exactly the same as they were in Brawl. I'm not totally sure why they didn't record any new ones. I know they had David Hayter back, who is the voice of Solid Snake, and I know he recorded some new lines for Snake for this game, but for whatever reason, they just didn't give him any new codex. As much as I love Palutena's Guidance, I do wish that there were some new codex. I feel like Pit is already such a goofy character that hearing him say goofy lines isn't as funny as it is to hear Snake, who's supposed to be this really serious military character, say them. So maybe some DLC will come out later that'll change it, but I really wouldn't hold my breath. The new Smash options are really convenient, but will also take a bit of getting used to, because now you don't just hop into a match and then change all the settings. Now you have predetermined sets of rules that you go into and then you play, and if you want to change anything about your match, you have to go back out, and then you have to go to the rule set you're currently in, change the rules, and then go back in. When you find some rule sets that you really like, I think this is going to be much more convenient in the future, because you can just name a rule set like, this is what we do when we do 8-player, this is what we do when we do serious 1v1s, this is with items, this is without items, this is timed, so on and so forth. But it is going to be a little bit inconvenient if you're so used to just hopping into matches and playing from older Smash games, but the trade-off could be well worth it. Alright, now the big thing on everybody's mind is probably World of Light. Actually, let's talk about All-Star Mode. All-Star Mode has been unlocked from the very beginning, and what's cool about it now is you can now play it with up to 4 players. It's your classic fight through every character in the game sort of scenario, and it's a pretty fun way to just sit back and relax with some of your friends. As much as I enjoy competitive Smash, I feel like cooperative Smash can be pretty fun too. Okay. Now we can talk about World of Light. Right after we talk about Classic Mode! Smash Ultimate's Classic Mode has gotten pretty interesting because each character has a personalized Classic Mode to go through, and each one has a different set of rules. Most of the characters have a pretty normal run where you'll just go through, beat up a bunch of enemies, and then fight Master Hand and Crazy Hand at the end. But some of the characters will actually have a special boss that's special to them at the end of their run, and I don't want to spoil them all for you, but let's just say it's well worth it to play through the game with a bunch of characters that you wouldn't normally play through, because you'll have no idea what boss you'll get at the end of the game. The runs are only 6 stages long, which might seem a bit short to some of you out there, but personally I found it to be a really good length because it made it so that playing through with a bunch of characters didn't feel tedious or monotonous, because normally a run would take like 10 to 15 minutes, and I feel like that's the perfect amount of time for a roster of 73 characters. If the runs were like 12 to 15 stages long, then it would get really annoying really quickly. Difficulty has been swapped out for this new meter. You can start anywhere between 1 and 5, and every time you win a match, the difficulty goes up. If you can beat the game with 9.9 difficulty, then you get a special reward. But if you lose at any point, you can continue, but it will cost you coins and the difficulty will go down significantly. So if you lose a run once, you're probably going to have to start it over if you want to get to that 9.9. There is a bonus game which is kind of cool, I guess. It's essentially trying to collect gold while a giant vortex tries to swallow you from behind. It's not target mode. I'm still kind of hoping for target mode to come back at some point, but I guess it's something. And the end credit sequence is shooting at a bunch of names just like the other Smash games. I like this a lot more than I like uncovering the pictures from Smash 4, but I am a bit disappointed that there's no longer a cute little picture or montage at the end of each character's classic mode. Alright, World of Light. So the new Spirits mode is a thing. You'll find spirits here that you won't find in the World of Light, and the only way to collect all of the spirits in the game is to go to this mode once in a while. You just pick a character you like, and you'll have a specialized spirit battle around that character, and if you win, you'll get that character. You do have to play this small mini-game after you win, but I mean, honestly, it's the easiest thing in the world. You really just have to push the A button when the circle opens up. And if for whatever reason you're having trouble, there's even items to help make it even easier. Personally, I actually really enjoyed this mode. You could spend hours in this mode if you really got caught up in it, because it's fun to see what each of the battles is going to be like, and you never really know what a character is going to be until you actually go into a match with it. And I feel like all of these character-based battles are actually pretty interesting Easter eggs to the characters themselves. I'd even say it's an interesting way to see where some of the characters' interesting costumes have come from. After beating a character, you have to wait a certain amount of real time for that character to be replaced with another character for you to fight, and if you wait too long, the characters will disappear. This is an interesting mechanic because it makes it so you want to go through the fights as quickly as possible so that you can get all of the characters and also put them on their timers so that new characters will pop up faster. The problem is, if you rush through some of these battles and you go into a battle you're not ready for and you lose, then that character disappears from the board and you won't get another chance at that character for a while. If you've been skimping out on this mode, I highly recommend it because it could be a lot more fun than you're giving it credit for. And actually, can we talk about spirits for a second? Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm not a huge fan of this mechanic. It's a little bit gimmicky. I'm not really into it, but I do like collecting the characters as a general rule. Some of the characters even have really interesting Easter eggs, but also have pretty huge spoilers, so if you're not ready for it, be careful about leveling some of the characters up and enhancing them to their next level, because some of them are literally going to spoil an entire game for you. Dracula being one of the ones you might want to stay away from, as tempting as it might be. One thing about the spirits is they feel a little shallow. Since it's so easy to level them up to 99, and there's really not that big of a payoff for it, because a lot of the characters that you're going to get are going to be really useless in the face of like a handful of 2 or 3 characters that you use all of the time. It is still fun to collect them, and you can fuse them to get new spirits, and you can get duplicates of some spirits, and there seems like there could have been some depth here somewhere, but honestly, it's more of a collectible than anything else. You're not going to use them in battle very often unless you're going into the World of Light. Speaking of which, Kudo, why don't you want to talk about the World of Light? Is it because you haven't done it yet? No, I've 100%ed the World of Light already. Well then, what's the problem? It's not very good, okay? It's pretty bad. It might be the worst part of Smash Ultimate. Now look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong if you like World of Light, but I am saying that from a purely objective standpoint, it is a very horribly designed area of the game. For the uninitiated, World of Light is the main story mode of the game. You start out as Kirby, and this giant winged thing in the sky turns all of the other characters into ghosts, and you're trying to go through and collect the other fighters so that you can take down the winged thing in the sky and restore peace. You run along a board, there are special fights along the board that you can partake in, and when you beat one of those fights, you get the spirit that's connected to that fight. And if you happen to come across a special, like, blue figurine fight, then that's a fight to unlock a character. It looks kind of cool. There are some interesting little touches, like at the beginning you have to pick one of 3 different paths to go down, and once you go down one path, then the other 2 paths get blocked off until you get further into the path you've selected. Some of the areas are references and nods to old video games. I'll try to keep the spoilers to a minimum here because I do think that finding some of these organically is going to be the best part of this mode. But all of the best things about this mode are really shallow and surface level. Like, some of the ideas are cool and some of the things look cool in it, but it's just not very fun to play through. If you're like 10 hours or less into World of Light, then you might think I'm crazy right now. You might be like, oh my god, Kudo, I'm having so much fun with this. I don't know how you could not like it. Wait for it, okay? It'll wear off, trust me. So, I guess Sakurai at some point wanted this to be like slightly RPG-ish. So there are 3 different colors of spirits, red, green, and blue, and you can probably guess where we're going with this. Yes, it is a triangle of weaknesses. On top of this, each of the spirits also has a power assigned to it. So the power when you're starting out will be between like 1,000 and 4,000, but eventually you'll be getting into like 10 to 13 to 14,000. And everything about this system is really, really dumb. For most players, this is just going to be a test to see how quickly you can break the game. My personal favorite game-breaking setup was to play as Lucario and then spam the spirits that increase Lucario's aura. For those who don't know how Lucario's aura works, usually the more damage he takes, the more damage he deals. But there's certain spirits that specialize in making Lucario's aura active from the very beginning of the match. So not only are you dealing more damage, but you're knocking out characters more quickly, and you have a pretty decent ranged attack to kite bigger characters with. Eventually, I moved on to Ike, and I gave him these powers that made him start the match with 30% damage, but also deal more damage. So I got 2 of those, and I put them onto a weapons master, which made his sword attacks do more damage, and then I also gave him another spirit that also increased the amount of damage his sword did, so then I was just 2-shotting people with smash attacks. See, that's the main problem with this system, is you can level up the spirits very, very quickly, and once you have a really high level spirit, you're probably not going to switch very often, and because you've already got a high level spirit, there's not really much more you have to do to increase your power. So once you get those like 1 or 2 high level spirits, you're done with leveling up, and it's just going to be going through each fight as quickly as you can. At first I was excited by how many fights there are, but seriously, the number of fights that you can get into get really, really outrageous when you get into the later parts of the game. I'm not trying to spoil things here, so I'll just say that at some point you're probably going to get tired of the fights. Mainly because there is no difficulty curve because of the way the spirits work. So you're going to run into these little portals that transport you into a dungeon, and in these dungeons, you'll probably solve some sort of puzzle, which is a kind of neat way to shake things up. It's normally not that deep, and you're probably going to figure it out very quickly, but it is something, I guess. So you're solving these puzzles, and then you'll eventually come across these really powerful fights with these really high-level spirits, and one of two things is going to happen. Either you're just going to acknowledge that the spirit is a much higher level than you, and you're going to come back when you have a higher level spirit, or you're going to bust your balls trying to get this spirit as soon as you find it. And if you're just looking for a challenge, then by all means, be my guest. The problem is, because the level of the spirits dictates how much damage you deal, you can be put in these situations that are just so tedious and unfair, where the enemy is dealing like 50 to 60% damage on you with their basic jab attacks, and you're dealing like 1 to 2% damage to them with your smash attacks. Now, is it possible to win in those scenarios? Sure, it's possible to win in those scenarios. Of course it's possible. But you're either going to have to do something incredibly cheap to win, or you're just going to have to sit there and play in a really tedious way to win. So, honestly, that's not my shtick. I'm going to stay away from that, and I just ended up coming back when I had stronger spirits. But when you do have stronger spirits, then it becomes a pretty regular battle, and once you finally get a spirit that's strong enough to beat that spirit, then your spirit is going to be so powerful that it's going to be reversed against all of the regular fights you have to do. So if you go into these fights and they have 13,000 power and you have 4,000 power, then they're going to be dealing 4, 5, 6 times more damage than you, and you're going to be dealing like nothing to them. But then after you get your 13,000 power spirit and you go into a fight against a 4,000, then it's not even going to be a fight anymore. You're going to run up, you're going to hit 2 buttons, and then they're going to die, and it's going to feel like a total waste of time, because it is. This wouldn't necessarily be a problem if the spirits just leveled up at like a gradual sort of curve, you know, like a regular RPG would do, but everything is so sporadic that even when you hit the final area of the World of Light, you're going to be fighting both enemies that have 3,000 power and 14,000 power. But why? If you've gotten to the last area of the game, then what is even the point of having enemies with 3,000 to 4,000 power? It is just so tedious. Unlocking characters in this mode takes kind of a long time. I've been hearing around, like I just watched the Jimquisition's review of Smash, and apparently some people are saying that the character fights are really difficult and the characters are hard to unlock. I mean, I'm pretty bad at Smash Brothers, and I didn't have any trouble beating all these characters on my first try, so I don't really know what that's all about, but I guess that's something to take in consideration. Another problem I have is how cryptic the game is with getting 100%. There are some things that I swear to God just are not laid out at all, that you just have to know going into certain areas. So I'm not going to spoil anything about the game or where you go or whatever, but I am going to give you 2 bits of information that are going to help you 100% this game if you get stuck. Press the A button in front of every treasure chest, even if you've already opened it, because eventually the thing you're going to have to do to beat a certain puzzle is going to be go to a treasure chest you've already opened and press the A button. Remember that. And even if you go for the true ending first, and you just go for the final ending of the game, you have to then go back and get the other endings in order to get the 100%. If you keep those 2 things in mind, the rest should be pretty easy to figure out. My final complaint for the World of Light is, I mean, this is probably something that I'm the minority on, but I'm really upset that they didn't do more to make a more epic story like they had in Brawl. I get that Subspace Emissary wasn't perfect. I get that a lot of people probably didn't like Subspace Emissary, but I feel like Subspace Emissary was the right step for this franchise to take. I feel like scaling back on that is just so dumb. Why can we not start making innovations in the whole crossover thing? One of the most fun things about a crossover game like this is seeing the characters interact with each other and the world. And even though a lot of people didn't like Subspace Emissary, I'm sure everybody can agree that there are things within Subspace Emissary that we really did like. For example, you cannot tell me that you didn't get at least a little bit hyped when Meta Knight's ship blew up and then all of these classic starships started flying out from it, and you got to see Samus's ship and you got to see Olimar's ship and an R-Wing, and dude, it was so cool, guys. It was so awesome, and there's just nothing now, okay? It's nothing. They even set it up like there was going to be some kind of story, but if you're expecting any cutscenes, I've got some news for you. It's not going to happen. You get like one cutscene at the beginning of the game, which is already used for the trailer, so it's nothing new. And then you're going to get a trailer cutscene at the end of the game, and that's your lot. I sure hope you're happy. This isn't to say that there's no flavor or spice to World of Light at all, because there are some interesting little things, like if you get certain spirits, then those spirits can unlock paths forward, and some of that stuff's kind of interesting, but I really, really want to see Smash actually get a story again and try that route again. As much as people didn't like Subspace Emissary, the right answer is to fix it and find a way to make it better, not just take it out of the game entirely. And no, I don't buy this bullcrap about Sakurai being sad boy about the Subspace Emissary getting leaked and now he'll just never ever do a story mode again. We had the steps there. It was right there for there to be a proper story mode in this game. We had the setup and everything was perfect, but it wasn't. It's just dozens of hours of grinding on fights. Oh boy. Oh boy. So that's my piece. Of course, it doesn't ruin the entire game for me. This is still probably the best Smash Bros. Game that's ever come out. A must-have for the Nintendo Switch. And I'm not saying that not having World of Light is a reason to not buy the game, because it's just something that bothers me personally, and if you're having fun with it, then by all means, have as much fun with it as you want. In fact, since I'm not having fun with it, that's just more fun for you. I 100%ed it. I'm not going to go back and 100% it on hard mode or anything. I'm just done with it. And with that out of the way, we should probably wrap this up and start getting to a review score. When it comes to worth it prices, this is probably going to be one of my most worth it prices that I'll ever make, but I guess we can try it. If you skipped over Smash 4, and if you're paying for Smash Online, or if you really liked Smash 4 and you want even more Smash 4, or even if you just sort of have a Nintendo Switch lying around and you don't have anything to play on it, this is of course worth its full price of $60. It really is an amazing game. Don't let anything I said about the World of Light detract from how amazing this game is, because it's so much fun and it's gonna keep you going for a really long time. Now, one thing I guess I'd say is, if you're not planning on playing this online and you're going to be playing it specifically for the single player content, like you don't have any local friends that you're going to play with, you don't plan on going to any events for Smash, and you don't plan on playing online at all, then maybe I'd say this game has a worth it price of about $45. I feel like this really is a social game, and you're probably going to get bored of the single player content within about 2 or so weeks, so maybe wait until the game's about $45. And then finally, if you have never played Smash before, or if you just have absolutely no interest in Smash whatsoever, and also the things about you not wanting to play socially with anybody, I might say that this game's worth maybe about $30. I'd say about half price is good if you already know that you don't really like Smash Brothers, but you're still kind of curious to try out the newest one. $30 should be about the right spot for you. While this game does have its problems and doesn't live up to some of the potential it could have had, I do, of course, think that it is a must-have for the Switch, and I cannot fault it for being a great game. Is it my favorite game on the Switch? Actually, it's not, but you know what? It's there in the top 5 somewhere, and I think that's good enough. It's definitely the best Smash game ever made, and I'm giving it a final score of 8 out of 10.